That is a good question. So a lot of people, when they study hypnotherapy, at least at the institute I went to, you basically pick a specialty or two or three. Some people do smoking cessation exclusively. Some people do weight control. Some people do, habits, things like that, sleep, snoring and biting your nails and things like that. And that's all great. I found very early on that I do my best work and I feel the best when I'm doing spiritual work. So I've always been into
All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Lynnsey and so excited to have Lynnsey on. And if y'all haven't gone, I know I sent y'all this if you're on my list and seen on the socials. I was on Lynnsey and Kelsey's podcast not too long ago. So y'all can go check that out, the High Vibing It podcast, which was super fun. So I'm glad to have you on my show, Lynnsey. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to dive into whatever our hearts desire, whatever the audience needs to hear today.
That's exactly it. And I'm excited to bring in whatever comes up. So if we could just start, if you could just kind of talk a little bit about what you do in the world and kind of what your mission is right now.
What I do in the world, what I want to do and try to do in the world is help people, normal people who really just want to get to that next level of success, of worthiness, of manifesting, of just anything really. If you feel like there's something blocking you and it's not, it's probably in your mind, I help people in that way. So I'm a hypnotherapist and intuitive coach. So I've started to incorporate, let me rephrase. I've started to admit that I incorporate intuition into my sentence. In the beginning, it was very clinical, it's all about the client, and it still is, but I would be ridiculous to say that I don't use intuition and that my guides don't come through. Your guides come through. It's a whole spiritual shebang that I've embraced. So I use hypnotherapy. I also do a little bit of EFT. All of it is energy. So we do energy as well. And it's just a very spiritual, empowering, it's expansive experience for myself and for the client, mostly using hypnotherapy to help you release your blocks, your mental thought patterns that are just not what you want them to be, and to help you step into your next level. That's a long way to say all that.
No, so it was good. It was perfect. It makes perfect sense. I love it. Okay, so I have to know, I love this. I already love where this conversation is going at this moment. So you said you started off like super clinical, right? And you just kind of allowed the spiritual part in. So did you, like when you first started out doing clinical hypnotherapy, did you know that there was like this kind of spiritual side coming out of you when you were doing it? Was it something that had like in a session, you're like, oh crap, this is how did that unfold? Where all of a sudden you're like, okay, I have to make this a part of what I do?
That is a good question. So a lot of people, when they study hypnotherapy, at least at the institute I went to, you basically pick a specialty or two or three. Some people do smoking cessation exclusively. Some people do weight control. Some people do, habits, things like that, sleep, snoring and biting your nails and things like that. And that's all great. I found very early on that I do my best work and I feel the best when I'm doing spiritual work. So I've always been into the unseen part of what makes us human. It's the best way I've learned to say that. So as a kid, I wanted to be like a CSI, or just out of high school, I really wanted to work in what's it called? Criminal psychology. I studied that in college for one semester before I realized maybe all this death is not my thing. I also wanted to be a ghost hunter. I wanted to do all those things. I would hang out in graveyards. Like I've always been super spiritual. Yeah. But I would never have labeled it like in the way that I do now. Anyway, so studying hypnotherapy, I knew that I wanted to be more in the past life regression, in the spirit guides, like let's meet your spirit guides, let's connect your intuition, let's do all these things, which is definitely what I learned in my studies. So I did know that that's what I wanted to do. As far as bringing my intuition, because it's all about like, let me help you unlock your power, right? Let me help you embody what it is to be you and all that you are and your highest potential.
Right.
And I kind of didn't know at first that I could that I was allowed to, be intuitive and tell people, say things that I shouldn't know, or pull cards for them, which is something I do in every session now, is I pull oracle or tarot cards for the client after our hypnosis. So I guess I just started giving myself permission because I wanted to do it. And I really just needed to give myself permission to incorporate it, because I know that there are spiritual teachers. I know that there are nutritionists that do this kind of thing. Like, why couldn't I too also do that? And I very quickly after that realized I'd been doing it anyway. I just didn't really know I was doing it. And I do it on the podcast. I will go on this long tangent and just say a whole bunch of really wise crap that I know I wouldn't have ever consciously thought to say. And I know that a lot of spiritual people and a lot of spiritual teachers and coaches and, guides will do this. And I just kind of started embracing it as, okay, well, that was the universe. You're welcome. And I think we all have the capacity to be vessels for that kind of wisdom and intuition. So as long as you can, again, give yourself permission to use it, then it's good for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
As long as you're using it for good, which I don't know if you aren't using it for good, then it's probably not your intuition. So that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I love that. I love kind of the evolution of it all. And I mean, we've talked a little bit about hypnotherapy. It was a long time ago. I had a guy who does hypnotherapy, but I would love to know how I know how you, but if you could talk more about how you use it with, because like you said, and I think that the guy that I had on, this was like 2 years ago, he was doing it for like, he did a lot for like weight loss and like very, specific reason, whatever. But I like that you are diving into a lot of like, limiting beliefs, like that kind of thing. Can you, I just had this conversation with somebody because I've just like finishing my hypnotherapy training and stuff. I'm doing like an online.
Wait, what? You're studying hypnotherapy?
I'm studying it. Yeah, I'm dabbling. So I haven't like, I'm kind of slowly incorporating things, but I've just really gotten into it. And so
you have to tell me, you can tell me on air or you can tell me off air, but you have to tell me where you're studying, because I have a lot of opinions.
I would love to hear your opinions.
I used to work at the institute I studied. I used to work in the distance department, so in the online section, and I'd get all the questions about like, what's the difference between this program and this program, and why is this different? So I have a lot of knowledge that I don't get to use anymore. So I'd really love to know where.
I would love that. I would love your insight actually, because it might change our mind. So yeah. But I love that you're using it with like limiting beliefs and overcoming like kind of the mental chatter. So can you just kind of dive in a little bit of that and how, I know what I was going to say. I was having a conversation the other day with a client kind of talking about this. And I mostly work with people who are at least a little bit spiritually inclined, because I do incorporate a lot of spiritual work into what I do. And so she is maybe not so much, into it. And so trying to explain kind of like what lives at the subconscious and how it's affecting, because she's kind of hit this plateau in our work together. And I'm like, I really think there's some things. So that leads me to, I want to know your insight on this and how like we hit these blocks, like you were saying in the beginning, we hit these blocks, and how you're using hypnotherapy to help kind of untangle those pieces. Okay.
Can I go into briefly, hopefully, how hypnosis works? And
please do.
How it is, because, I'm not going to lie. When I first started studying this, I thought I was going to be Harry Potter. I was like, oh my God, I know magic. This is amazing. And then I very quickly realized, we all do this every single day anyway.
Totally.
This is something we already are an expert in. Okay. So basically, just very quickly, if everybody could just imagine that your mind, not your brain, we know those are different, the brain and the mind, but the metaphysical mind, the unseen part of your brain, is a circle. Let's just pretend it's a circle just for the sake of this demonstration. When you're born, it is a completely blank circle. There's nothing there except two things: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. So those two fears are ingrained in infants when they're born.
Oh, wow.
Oh, of course, the fight or flight response, which is triggered with the fear of loud noises or the fear of falling. So that's it. That's all you're born with. Everything else is learned, which is good, because everything that can be learned can also be unlearned if you have the right tools. So anyway, when you're born, you're just taking in everything. You have no logic or reasoning to tell you that what's true and what isn't true. If you grew up thinking the sky is green because your big brother said it as a joke, you're going to think that because he said it at the right time of your development, that you had nothing to go against it. So you believe it. My brother told me once that if I use a different shampoo brand to conditioner, then my hair would fall out. And he only told me that after I proudly, at like 6 years old, I proudly announced to the whole room that I used a different shampoo than conditioner. Like it was such a cool thing. And he goes, no, you didn't really? What? Your hair's going to fall. And I was convinced. Oh my
God, that's so mean.
I grew up with 4 big brothers.
Oh my gosh.
Well, 3 big brothers. And another one told me I would die if I ate death by chocolate. Can you imagine? As a child? I was terrified.
That's so funny.
I was terrified to eat it. And it's so delicious. Death by chocolate is the best. Anyway, so your mind's completely open. You're just taking everything in as true because you just don't know any better. So around age 7 to 9, everybody's different. A big window would be 6 to 10, but around age 7 to 9, you get what's called a critical filter or a critical mind, which acts as a separator between the newly formed conscious and subconscious minds. You now have a go-between to tell you what's true and what isn't. Whatever's in that subconscious around that age, when that critical filter gets installed rather, is in there as true. Those are your knowns, KNOWNS, knowns. These are my truths that tell me who I am and how I feel. Now, in the conscious mind, you have logic, reasoning, decision-making skills, willpower, all the things that tell you reality from fantasy. You have these abilities now to rationally think. When you have a thought, let's say, what's a common thought of your clients? I want to get healthier. I want to lose weight.
It's not usually the weight loss thing. It's usually like they want to get past like their chronic symptoms. So they want to get rid of their headaches or hormone.
And can we, for the sake, do you agree that sometimes certain things can be healed with the mind?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's just pretend like they have these symptoms that no doctor can explain, right? I would say, chronic headaches, whatever.
Yeah.
If it's a physical symptom that cannot be diagnosed, we'll just go with that. So you're like, okay, well, I would love to get rid of this. That would be great. I would love to go through life not feeling pain. I would love to be myself, feel like myself. Now, that's a beautiful thought. It starts in the conscious mind, as all ideas and inspirations do. They start in the conscious mind. They check in with the critical filter, which then checks in with the subconscious mind. I'm talking really fast to make sure I get it all out. Checks in with the subconscious mind. And the subconscious, if there's anything in there, anything that tells you it is unsafe, it is unknown, which is equaling unsafe, or that it's a bad idea, it's going to kick it right back out. So for example, if we take the chronic headaches, let's say every time you get a headache, you get to go lay in a dark room by yourself and have time to yourself. Well, in the subconscious mind, that could be a great reason to keep those headaches going because that's the only alone time you might get. So I will say, if there's anything in the subconscious mind that, whether it makes sense to you consciously or not, if there's anything in there that tells you danger, 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 this is a bad idea, because A, we know what will happen and it's going to be bad, or B, we don't know what's going to happen and it's probably going to be bad, then it's going to kick that idea right back out. And that's when we start to feel like this hamster on a wheel of like going over and over and over again, starting over. I feel inspired and then I get discouraged and then I start back at square one because your subconscious mind is the boss. Your subconscious mind is about, every study is different, but the consensus seems to be over 90% of your mind power. So if you have 90% of your mind power saying no, good luck. Good luck is all I got to say. Now, if you could get your subconscious 90% on the same page as your conscious 10%, that willpower, that logic, that reasoning that's telling you that it is possible, you have 100% of your mind power going. That's how everything gets done. Every goal you've ever achieved, every piece of your reality is because your subconscious mind and your conscious mind have been on the same page. Now, the only time we feel that disconnect is when there is that disconnect of the subconscious mind says no, my conscious mind says yes, I'm trying. But now you're only using 10% of your mind to convince 90%. It's not impossible, but it will take a long time. It will feel really, really hard. And there's no guarantee that it's actually going to work. So what I love about hypnosis is that we take your beautiful idea, your great genius idea, we piggyback it on this with hypnosis, where we create a gateway between the critical filter, which is the conscious and subconscious mind go-between. We create a pathway through into the subconscious so that we can directly teach your subconscious why it is safe, why it is okay, and why this is actually a really, really good thing. We get to teach your subconscious whatever you want it to know. Now, that being said, I'm a really good at my job, okay? And I can never make anyone go against their core morals, beliefs, ideas, emotions, what they believe to be good and real and true, unless they want to.
Right.
That's important.
Right.
So I can never make you go rob a bank unless you already want to rob a bank, my dear. All those news stories that you're watching, I've seen them. I was hypnotized. Okay. Okay. I know better. You can't tell me that. Anyway, so yeah, you can never make anybody go against who they are as a person. But if they have a goal and their subconscious mind is really against it because it doesn't feel safe, then that's when we can help teach your subconscious why it's good and why it's safe and why this is just going to help you be more of who you already are. Does that make sense?
That was great. Yes.
So I don't remember what your question was.
My question was, I mean,
how do I use it?
Yeah. Just kind of how it works to help like people overcome like mental blocks or like limiting beliefs, that kind of thing. So yeah, you basically answered it. Yeah.
So again, hypnosis is something that everybody goes into every day anyway. You have to pass through an altered state in order to fall asleep, in order to wake up, in order to get lost in a book or a movie, driving home without remembering it. These are all examples of very light states of trance. Meditation. Okay. I have to say, if you're doing meditation that's guided, you're doing hypnosis. It's a light state. It's a light state of hypnosis, but you're doing hypnosis because hypnosis and meditation are different in that hypnosis is objective based. There has to be a goal in the hypnosis. So this is a hypnosis to stop biting your nails. This is a hypnosis to reconnect to your inner child. This is, that sort of thing. But a meditation, if you use it in the traditional sense, is a clearing so that you can receive information from higher source, from universe, from spirit. So if there's a goal, if there's any sort of like guidance, then congratulations, you're already doing it.
You've already done it. I love that. That was such a good explanation. I think something that gets people, because you mentioned it when you were explaining it just then, I think something that gets people is it's so hard for us to understand how like the subconscious mind isn't always logical. I think that's something that's hard for people to grasp. Where it's like you were saying, you used the example of the headaches, and you're like thinking about it logically. You're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would I want to have these headaches like that? So I think the hard part is to grasp for people so often is that the subconscious mind it's not logical. It's not designed to be logical.
It's not designed to be logical. This brings up two very important points, and I hope that I can say this in English. So the first thing that I want to say too is your subconscious is not trying to sabotage you. It loves you. Well, I don't know if it loves you. I don't know if it loves you, but it's definitely trying to keep you alive. It's definitely there to protect you based on what it knows based on what it knows how to do to protect you.
Right.
That's where we get all of these defense mechanisms, coping mechanisms, and sometimes physical symptoms, because it learned somewhere along the way that this is what's going to give you what you need. This is what's going to keep you safe. Right. Again, not happy, not fulfilled, not abundant or rich or powerful or, your most potent self. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that your subconscious mind needs to know that that's something that will fall into the category of taking care of you. So somewhere, somehow, the translation can get lost and it can do things that don't seem to make any sense because that's what it knows how to do to keep you safe. The other thing is, again, back to your point, the subconscious does not know fact from fiction. It doesn't know reality from fantasy. It does not know logic. It does not know the difference. It doesn't know if you're being sarcastic when you say, oh, I'm just so stupid or so ugly. It will just be like, okay, let's make a note of that. That's something that you know to be true. So self-talk is huge. I know you know this. I know your listeners probably know this, but the reason it's so big is because your subconscious has no idea if you're joking, has no idea if you're being sarcastic. It is just listening and taking notes all the time. So what you say and what you think are your biggest superpower that you have.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And I do think that we underestimate that part of us, like that piece of us. Like, I think we underestimate how much the self-talk does get implanted in the subconscious. And I think so often, and I mean, I'm sure you can speak to this because you are doing this for a living, but I think that because I find at least, and I'm not incorporating hypnosis right now, like, again, I'm kind of getting to that point, but just working and I do what I call I do some kind of I guess it's technically like getting in them in a hypnotic state, but I do some kind of emotional release sessions, and we kind of work through energy centers and stuff. And I find so often that the self-talk is really at the root of I don't know, I'd say like 80% of it is the root of so much of it is the self-talk. And I just think we really underestimate how much our subconscious, like you were just saying, it's 90%, it's running 90% of the show or more of the show, like how much that's really affecting and how much that's really affecting us like on a physical level.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that's so insidious, I guess would be the word, about your self-talk and your inner dialogue and thoughts is that you don't even know you're doing it. Most of us have no idea how bad it really is.
Right.
But every time I talk about this, especially if it's on someone else's podcast, is I'll say, you're gonna now, you'll notice, because just the power of suggestion, right? Like that's just by talking about it, just by putting the subconscious in the conscious. Now we're making subconscious behaviors more conscious. You're going to acknowledge, you're going to notice. The key when you start to notice how you talk to yourself, if you're not satisfied with it, or if you think that you had no idea it was this bad, the first thing to remember is not to judge yourself for judging yourself. Okay? Let's not do that. We're not doing that. We're not going to judge ourselves for judging ourselves, because what is that doing besides just perpetuating the cycle?
Right.
You're just observing. You are a casual observer. You're a fly on the wall of your own thoughts. And when you can be that casual observer, you can understand, oh, that didn't really feel that good. I'm not going to judge myself for it, but I'd like to think differently. How could I do that? And then you start to ask the right questions. How would I like to feel instead? What would I like to believe? In a perfect world, if I wanted to believe anything, what would it be regarding the thing you just said? So I usually want to give examples, but it's so hard for me. It really is so hard because I can't even pretend because I know my subconscious doesn't know that I'm pretending.
Right.
It has no idea.
Right.
So I'm just going to invite the audience to think of the last thing that they remember saying that wasn't so great about themselves, about their situation, about their life, whatever. Something you might usually say, if you can't think of a specific one, just something you might say. Okay, now, when you think about it, it doesn't feel good. And that's because it's not in line with who you are. It's outside of that. So you can begin to start asking yourself, okay, instead of that, what would I like to believe instead? You're not saying that you believe it right now, because that's too much. And I know that, again, your subconscious will know that that's not true right now.
Right.
So what would I like to believe? In a perfect world, what would I like to believe? What am I open to believing? What would feel better to me? And that's sometimes all you need to do. And that's why affirmations, I like to be very specific with affirmations and say, like, if you're just going around saying, I am skinny, I am beautiful, I am tall, I am, I know these are all physical, but you get the idea. That's usually where most of our self-talk comes from, let's be honest.
Right.
Then your subconscious is going to know, like for me, I'm 4'11". I'm 4'11" and a half. If I were to start saying, oh, I am really tall, like
you're like,
your subconscious doesn't know fact from fiction, true, but it does know what's true for you right now. It knows. It knows you're not a millionaire. It knows that you're not 7 feet tall or 6 feet tall. So you could start by saying, I mean, the height one was a bad idea because now I can't think of one that would be better because literally can't grow anymore. I am way past that. But you could say, like, I am open to becoming more authentically me. Every day I am becoming more of who I'm meant to be. I'm becoming more open to being my most confident self. I'm noticing ways that I'm already confident in my life. I'm becoming more aware of the abundance already in my life. Anything. Instead of I am, you could say I am becoming. Instead of I am, you could say I am open to. I am willing to. It is safe for me to. That's a big one for me. It is safe. It is safe. It is safe. It's safe for me to be 7 feet tall. Come on, subconscious. Let's do it. No, oh my gosh. Could you imagine 7 feet?
I feel like, I was about to say, I think that'd be too much. Yeah. I love that about that, because I was actually going to ask you about that, like your thoughts on affirmations. Because I know, a lot of people who work with kind of, reprogramming subconscious beliefs have, strong beliefs about affirmations and if they do work or they don't work or whatever. So,
they work. You just have to find everybody has a different subconscious language and everybody's unique, but there are two basic types. There are two very general types. The one type is the literal person, which you could just say whatever you want and they would take it in at face value. Then there's the inferential, which is me, and probably a lot of people listening who need to know what you really meant by that, who need to find the deeper meaning, who need to ask why and how and but why, but what for. Yeah. The overthinkers sometimes, the people who are maybe a little bit more introverted, most of the time, not all the time. These are all very general, I guess, stereotypes, but they tend to pan out. Okay, so the literal person, if they were in a session with me, I could say to them, your body is feeling relaxed. Your arms are feeling relaxed. You know, you are relaxed. That would work. Most people, and they also are the same people who could use I am affirmations because they're literally taking it at face value. It's easier for them. But for those people who think, gosh, I don't want it to sound like one's better than the other because it's really not. It's all how you're wired. It's all how you are, and you are wonderful the way that you are. But for those that need to think a little bit more about things, who need to read between the lines and find the deeper meaning, if I say to them, "Oh, you're relaxing now," the hell I am. What do you mean? Sorry, didn't mean to curse. But yeah, they'd be like, no. Yeah. No, I'm not. Do better. Right. So instead of that, they would be the ones that need I am becoming. It's not true right now, but I'm open to it being true in the future. And that's all I need. If they were in a session with me, I would use more words like allow a sense of comfort, allow, giving them a choice. They are allowing it. You don't have to allow it, but if you did, you'd be very comfortable. If you did, it'd feel really nice. Allow a sense of comfort into the body, maybe incorporating that sense of heaviness instead of relaxation. Comfort seems to be better for those analyticals or inferential people, better than relaxation. Relaxation is more for a literal person. Again, everybody's different. You might be a literal person and hate the word relaxation, and that's fine. I will find a way to help you get to the place you need to be. But yeah, so it's really just about learning how you take in information, learning your subconscious language so that you can best speak to your subconscious language and so that I can.
That's what I was about to ask. So how do you go about, like when you're doing a session, are you having conversations that you can kind of use your intuition to pick up on somebody is like what their subconscious language is? How do you help them know what their subconscious language is?
So so I have phone calls with everybody that is a prospective client. So they will fill out an application. I'll get on a call with them just to see if I vibe with them, if they vibe with me. You know, it's a lot different than just filling out a form. Usually we do. I gotta say, usually we get along great. But within the first few minutes, I can pretty much tell. I can recognize them as me, or I can, because the thing with a lot of teachers, coaches, guides, they will fall really close to the middle of both types. That's great for teachers and guides and coaches because you can flip. Right. If somebody comes to you super literal, you can communicate with them and understand them. If somebody comes to you very much in their head, very overthinker, very analytical, you can flip. You can speak to them. You can understand them. So I just gauge which muscle I'm using more, I guess, which type I'm vibing with them on, and then I can pretty much tell. And I like to tell them like, oh, I already know, but let's do the test anyway, because I do have a questionnaire that I ask them. That will help me determine what their suggestibility is, aka their subconscious language. If you, just as an aside, if you're seeing a hypnotherapist and they're not asking you these questions, like what type and how you take in information, they're not going to know how to talk to you. And you might be someone who's very easily hypnotized, someone who goes into state very easily, which then it wouldn't matter. But if you're not, and if you feel like you want somebody that knows, then, just make sure they're asking you some questions. Just they need to ask you questions. But anyway, so I have this questionnaire that I ask and just to help me determine, but I always tell them that what I think they are before we score it. And then, most of the time I'm right. 9 times out of 10, I'm right. And I've been doing it so long that it's hard to take the hat off. I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing it with people I meet on the street. And once you know what to look for, it's very interesting to know. You doing it to family members, friends, everybody, kids.
Yeah. It's so funny because I do that with human design. I'm like constantly like, oh, I know what type you are.
Right?
Oh, I know what your profile. You have one of these in your profile. I do that all the time, like constantly analyzing people and their human design, not in a judgy way at all. But
No,
I'm like,
I think one of the first things you learn as somebody who does any kind of personality or charts or anything that determines how someone is, you very quickly learn like there's no wrong way to be.
Right.
There really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I do handwriting analysis in the first session as well. So
That's super cool.
It's really fun for clients to see like what their handwriting says about them.
That's cool.
And again, no judgment at all. And I haven't seen any scary ones, but when I was studying, there were some scary ones. And I only bring it up because the non-judgmental bone in my body was definitely judgy when I was doing handwriting, because the handwriting, I don't care what anyone says, your handwriting does not lie. It is so automatic and so deeply ingrained in your subconscious that you can fake it if you want, but if you're writing the way you naturally write, the traits are going to come out. So there was one that I looked at that we had as a final exam. They were like, look at this handwriting, tell me about it, and then I'll tell you who it is. And so we looked at we looked at two, but the one that I want to talk about it was freaking scary. And I'll tell you guys who it was, but it looked like daggers. It looked, every letter looked like sharp and threatening and dangerous. Yeah. And it turned out to be Charles freaking Manson.
I was just about to say, was it Charles Manson? Oh my God.
So it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Wow. And then we looked at Marilyn Monroe's, which is exactly how you would imagine her handwriting to be. And these were extreme examples to help us learn like what to look for. But every day I see handwriting that is so perfect for the person that I'm looking at and the person that I'm working with. And again, this is all going back to like, there's only one time I will judge, and it's if you have daggers. I mean, I don't want to judge anybody who has daggers, but just like, I know Charles Manson is extreme version example, but I don't know, man.
That's
if you have daggers for your handwriting, then I got some questions for you.
Right. So this is so fascinating about this. So what kind of things, like, and you don't have to go too deep into it, I'm just curious, what kind of things are you picking up, like, based on their handwriting that you're analyzing?
Oh, okay. So the main traits I look for is if you default to optimism or pessimism, if you default to future looking or holding on to the past, those all really help in working with somebody. How this one's interesting. This one is one that always is prominent, but what level your confidence and self-esteem is at, how you come to me, how confident you are that day that you've written it. Oh, cool. You can tell the mood sometimes. I mean, I would need to compare it with another day, but based on how you're feeling, you could increase pressure on the paper. I mean, we've all been there, right? Like writing an angry letter or just trying to get it out so fast that your brain is moving faster than the pen. Yes. So that sort of thing. And so another thing that we look for is the boundaries that you set. So how healthy your boundaries are. And I always ask for the handwriting on a blank sheet of paper. So if it's lined, it's cheating because you have a straight line to follow. But if you don't have any rules, like how does your natural flow go? Right. So the boundaries you set with others and the boundaries that you respect from others can show up easily in the handwriting. I'm just laughing because every time I show people this, they're like, their eyes turn to saucers and like, oh my gosh, how do you know that? Very, very fun for me.
Yeah.
but no, cool. it's so much fun to show. I mean, who doesn't want to learn more about themselves?
Right.
I think that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
You're never going to regret learning more about yourself. And so for me to be able to teach people not only how to look for more, how to find more about themselves, the questions to ask, the things to look for, the things that occur to you that probably never occurred to you before, different ways to look at things, just to help you understand the magnificence of everything you are. Like this is not a joke. This is not a drill, people. Like you understand what you have on this planet. Oh, if only we were using it. Yeah. So that's what I like to help people do in any way that I can. And so I like to incorporate different ways and different things, but the handwriting is one of the more lighthearted, fun ones to do. And now that they know the certain traits that are what's the word? attached, I guess, to different personality traits, then they know what to affect. Because theoretically, if your handwriting comes out if your personality comes out in your handwriting, then by changing your handwriting, you could theoretically adjust certain confidence levels, maybe, or, it couldn't hurt, as all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
Couldn't hurt to try.
So fascinating to me. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Okay. So as we're kind of starting to wrap things up, do you have any, like, for people who are listening right now that are like, they're dealing with maybe some limiting beliefs. They're like, yes, this is me. I have this subconscious crap that's, blocking this or that, whatever. Do you have any, obviously aside from, doing hypnotherapy with someone like you who can help them kind of work through this stuff, but do you have anything like daily practices or things that people can start to implement that can help them maybe kind of break through some of these, or like get more attached to their intuition to kind of start reprogramming stuff outside of the hypnotherapy?
So what I find is that the first step is not changing your beliefs, because I used to think that, okay, well, now that I know, I just got to change it, right? But the first step is not changing your beliefs. First step is understanding that you have a choice. The first step is understanding that you can, that you don't have to just be stuck with whatever's in your brain from 9 years old. We're all just a bunch of 10-year-olds walking around in grown-up costumes trying to figure it out. Like, that's really what's happening.
We totally are.
When you can hold space for that and have compassion for yourself, that like, yeah, this is what happened. If I'm not satisfied, I'm at least open to the idea that I can change it. And then once you are, I think, honestly, my theory is that if everybody could be completely grounded and connected to their true self, you can call it a soul, you can call it higher wisdom, you can call it intuition, don't really care what you call it. If you can be connected to your true self, you will always have a true north. You'll always have a GPS to follow. You'll always be able to trust yourself. Because when you can trust yourself, you are literally unstoppable. When you can trust yourself from a place of love and soul connection and universal connection, when you can feel that connection to all that you are versus just the 3D of what you are, everything becomes possible. And that's really all you need. You need to know that it's possible, because then the next step will show up for you, and the next step, and the next step. The only people I know that have never changed and feel like they can't are the people who feel like they can't, right? Like, that's it.
They've already told themselves they can't. Yeah. They've
already told themselves they can't. So, okay. So once you know what's going on and you know that it's possible and you know that you have a choice, I would just sit, ask yourself questions. Hey, self, what do you need today? Do you need peace? Do you need fun? Do you need productivity? Do you need sleep? Listening to what you need and doing it more would be great. Watching yourself talk. I know you asked for one thing, and this is a lot of things.
No,
but I think it all comes back to the root of be connected to yourself. Know what you want and do it. Know what you want and do it more. However you can, as often as you can. Find out what you need and do it.
Yeah. No.
And watch your life really actually change. Like, watch it, because it's a good show.
That's so good. No, that was so good. That was so good. I love it. Okay. I do have one more question that I want to ask you that I like to ask everybody as we wrap up.
Just one?
Yes, one. But before I do that, can you let everybody know where they can learn more about you, what you're doing with your hypnotherapy and all of that? You have a membership, you have all kinds of things to help them rewire and reprogram. And
Yes. So I have for free, I have the podcast. You can listen to High Vibin' It every week. Maybe not. Okay. So we might be changing the schedule, but if you just find High Vibin' It and subscribe, then you'll know when new episodes are coming out.
Yes. There's episodes.
So many, there's like 200 and some episodes already, so you can catch up, but that is amazing for just knowing how to think about things differently and asking questions you never thought to ask. It's a great outlet for that. And then the most potent thing I would say is become a client. I would love to work with you. I would love to get inside your mind and help you figure out what's going on. And the cool thing about working together is not only do you get help that you need right now, but you also get tools that you can begin to fly solo when our sessions are over. You have these things forever. I give you the audios that we do in this session, resources and all sorts of things that you can just take with you. So that would be the first. And then if you're not quite ready for that and you just want to dip your toe in, as they say, to the work and to hypnotherapy and see what you're capable of, I have a membership that is a low cost per month, but you get access to all of my audios that I've ever created are in a huge audio library. And then there's bonus content, EFT sessions. Did I mention I do EFT? I do EFT.
You did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love doing EFT. It's so much fun.
EFT. Yes.
And there's tarot pulls, there's manifesting hacks, there's all sorts of stuff. And then I also have one step lower from that membership is just the audios only. And I think it's like $15 a month, super cheap.
Yeah.
That you can just get all my hypnosis and start seeing some really cool changes in your life. I think that's everything. So you could either become a client or do it digitally through the membership and the podcast. I think that's everything.
Yeah. So many good things. And of course, I'll have the links to all that in the show notes. So y'all can go check that out and go download the podcast and follow that. It's so good. Okay. The last question that I want to ask you that I like to ask everybody, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Wow. The most important thing you can do to live with purpose. I thought it was going to be like, what's your favorite color?
Deep here. We're going deep.
I didn't think that was a question. That would be silly. Let me think. Okay. So most important thing that I would do to know that I'm living with purpose is to be true to myself. Because the only time I feel like I'm not living with purpose is when I'm either putting others before myself too much, big no-no, or I find myself maybe using my ambition to maybe overlook others in my life. Doesn't happen often, but I move quickly in my house and sometimes I leave people in the dust. And so I think being true to myself and keeping that balance between my desires and the harmony of the house. I don't know if this is making any sense.
It does make sense. It's the MG in you, by the way. The MG in you moving fast and doing all the things. So.
Yes. I'm always on the move. And I still haven't finished the sentence yet. But I think living with purpose, just going back to that question of like, what do I need today? And how can I bring more of that to myself? You can use it with manifesting. What am I trying to manifest? What feeling am I trying to get from it? And how can I experience that more in my everyday life? Because guess what? When you can do that, it's just going to show up anyway. More stuff like that is going to show up. So asking the right questions, listening to the answers, staying true to yourself and honoring your needs for sure. Everything else will just happen and fall into place.
That's perfect. I love it. Thank you, Lynnsey. Such a good answer, by the way. I love that answer. So it was perfect and it made perfect sense.
Thank you.
So thanks, Lynnsey. This was so good. I love where we took the conversation, Lynnsey. We were just kind of free flying and looking at how much we brought to the surface. This is so good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoys it as much as I did.
Yes, so good. Thank you.